Nice to have you here, Audrey. Before we start, Revlon would like you to have this gift box of their wonderful beauty products. Isn't that pretty?
It's lovely, thank you.
Okay, now on with the game. Let's find out a little bit about you first. According to your card here, you're from Detroit, Michigan.
That's right.
And you're visiting New York, and you're a secretary. What type of business do you work in?
Well, I'm a legal secretary for Worth, Fine, Arthright, Wallington, Rexford, Simon.
Sounds like a nice chap. Must be an Englishman with all those middle names, huh? Worth, Haxon, who's it? Worth?
No. Worth, Finer, Haxon, Arthright, Wallington, Rexford, Simon.
Gee. What do you say when you answer the phone?
Hello.
Oh, that's clever. I see also by your card here that you're single, Audrey. Is that true? What sort of fellow are you looking for? Or what do you got in mind?
Well, blonde, blue eyes, tall, thin.
Why don't we play this game and don't expect any help from me? Are you ready to start? Okay, Audrey. Right behind you now is the Revlon list of categories. Now, be very careful which one you choose, because whichever it'll be the one that carries you right on up to $64,000. So which one will it be? The Bible, food and cooking, operas, pop music?
Movies.
Movies? All right. Now, the IBM selector has hundreds of questions, and it'll automatically select your batch for movies. Lynn, please, would you punch number 12, movies? Thank you, Lynn. Now you know the rules of the game, Audrey. Your first question is worth $1. You keep doubling right on up to $64,000. At any time during the game, you can take it or leave it, which means that you can take the money that you've won and go home, or leave it and try for the next question, which keeps right on doubling.
Wonderful.
At any time after that, now, at any time up to $512. If you miss a question, you go home with memories. That's about it. Is that all clear?
That's clear.
Okay, you ready to start now? See if you can
ready.
pick up $64,000? All right, here
I'm
we
ready.
go. Now, for $1, if I said Greta Garbo starred in Camille, you'd know I was right, because it's true. Now, I'll give you the movie. You answer right or wrong, depending upon whether Garbo was the star. Okay? For $1. Camille.
Right.
Right, you're right for $1. For $2, Ninotchka.
Right.
Right for $2. For $4, King Kong.
Wrong.
Wrong. You're right. You're right. For $8, Anna Karenina.
Right.
Right, you're right for $8. For $16, Mother Wore Tights.
Wrong.
Wrong, you're right. For $32, Mata Hari.
Right.
You're right for $32. Now for $64, The Story of Gosta Bjerling.
Yes.
Right, absolutely correct for $64. You're on your way. That was Greta's first movie in Sweden. All right, now you have $64, Audrey. Revlon wants to know if you'll take it or try for $128. What will it be?
I want to try.
You'll go right up to 100. You'd like to quit that job, wouldn't you?
Sure.
Just remembering the names, you'd be through with that. All right, now for $128. I beg your pardon. I'll give you the male lead of a movie. You give me the female lead. All right? For $128, Tom Ewell in The 7-Year Itch.
Oh, Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe is right for $128. Audrey, you have $128. Will you try for $256?
Sure.
You'll go on. Oh, you're a nervy secretary. For $256, the male lead was Fred Astaire in Flying Down to Rio. Who was the gal?
Ginger Rogers.
Ginger Rogers is right for $256. All right, you have $256. Your next question is worth $512. Before we go on, let me explain this to you. If you miss the $512 question, as we know, you go home with having had a pleasant 4 or 5 minutes. However, if you answered correctly, you'll have then reached your first plateau, which means that from that point on, you can go home with no less than $512. Is that clear?
That's clear.
Okay, now what do you want to do? Do you want to take the $256 or leave it and try for $512?
Oh, no, I want to try.
You'll try. Sure, I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. Okay, for $512, Audrey, John Gilbert was the male lead in The Big Parade. Who was the girl?
Ooh. I don't know. Was
You want to take a
Gloria
guess?
Swanson?
No, I'm terribly sorry. The correct answer is Rene Audrey. I'm very, very sorry, Audrey. However, Revlon won't allow you to go home with nothing. They want you to accept this lovely gift basket, a complete assortment of beauty products I'm sure you're going to thoroughly enjoy. Audrey, I'm very sorry you lost. However, thank you very much for playing with us. The $64,000 question. Thank you, Audrey. All right, Bill, on with this big money game. Who's Revlon's next guest?
Okay, Hal. Well, our next guest, ready to start in the climb to the $64,000 question, is from Rutherford, New Jersey, Mr. Martin Mulligan.
Nice to have you here, Mr. Mulligan. Do you mind if I call you Martin?
Not at all.
We'll shorten this whole thing up. Martin, before we go on, here is a gift box of Revlon beauty products for your wife or sweetheart, which we'll find out more about in a little while. All right, Martin, according to your card here, it says that you're a salesman. Now, what do you sell?
Well, building materials generally. Insulation board, fiberglass, hardboard, plaster, and the like.
Well, you're in the construction game.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I'm in the game. I got to go maybe a month and a half without saying that. I'm curious. I've never asked this of anybody. What would you do if you won $64,000?
I'd take a bath in it.
What do you use for soap? Quarters? Anyway, let's see now. Are you married?
Yes, I've been married about 16 years.
You look like a happy fellow. It must have worked out pretty well. Do you have any children?
Yes, we have children. There's something odd about our marriage, perhaps might interest you. The initials of myself, my wife, and the children is the same.
All MM. Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Sure. What are the names?
Well, my name's Martin, of course. My wife's Marion.
Uh-huh.
And there's Maureen and Martin Jr.
2 children. That's a wonderful family.
And then there's Michaela and Mary Ellen.
4 children. That's a real nice full family.
And there's Monica, and Marilyn, and Marcia.
Oh, 7 children?
And there's Matthew.
8 children?
Yeah, 8 children.
Well, I'm waiting for the next one.
So are we.
Mulligan, you're in a stew. And I think you could use $64,000, right? I think those kids could stand a little of that money. All right, why don't we see now if you can walk away with $64,000. Martin, right behind you is a Revlon list of categories. Now, be very careful which one you choose. As I said to Audrey, this is the one that'll take you right on up to the big money. So which one will it be? Food and cooking, operas, pop music?
I'll try number 4, baseball.
Number 4, baseball. All right, our IBM selector has hundreds of questions, and it'll brew up a batch for you. Lynn, would you press number 4, baseball, please? Thank you, Lynn. Now, you know the rules of the game, of course, Martin. 1 on up to 64, doubling, and so forth. All right, let's get right on with the game now. For $1, I'll give you the first name and the last initial of a baseball player, and you supply the last name. For example, if I say Richie A., you answer Ashburn, because that's the name of the Philly center fielder, right? Okay, here we go, Martin, and good luck on up to the big stuff. For $1, Richie A.
Ashburn.
Absolutely right. For $2, Yogi B.
Berra.
Yogi Berra is right. For $4, Roy C.
Campanella.
Campanella. For $8, Leo D.
DeRocher.
DeRocher is right. For $16, Del E.
Ennis.
Absolutely right. For $32, Carl F.
Perillo.
Perillo, right. For $64, Junior G.
Gilliam.
You're right for $64. All right, you have $64. Revlon wants to know now, will you take the 64 or will you leave it and try for $128?
I'll try for 128.
So you can have another 8 or 9 kids. You're an ambitious father. There's no getting away from it. All right, now, for $128, I'm going to give you the nickname of a great ball player. You give me his real name, right? For $128, the Sultan of Swat.
Babe Ruth.
You're right for $128. You have 128. Will you go for 256 or will you take that 128?
I'll go for 256.
You'll go for 256. All right, for $256, the nickname is Old Reliable.
Tommy Hendricks.
You're right for 200. With 8 kids, I don't know where you got time to go to ball games. Nothing personal. Nothing personal.
I know.
Well, you have $256. Your next question is worth $512. Now, before you tell us whether you'll take it, Martin, I should tell you this. If you miss the $512 question, you go home to the kids with a nice story about tonight's outing. However, if you answer the $512 question correctly, you will have then reached the first Revlon plateau, which means that you can go home with no less than $512. Okay? Now, Martin, what will you do? Will you try for $512?
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
You're my kind of a guy. Okay, for $512, the nickname of this great ball player is the Fireman. The
Joe
answer-
Page.
Joe Page is right for $500. Gee, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous, Mom. One of us is enough up here being nervous. Well, you've answered the $512 question correctly, which means, of course, you can't go home with anything less. Now, before we go over to the $1,000 question, I'd like to ask you more about those 8 children. That's really a fascinating thing. A man with 8 children. I think that's just wonderful that you have 8. What do you think about it?
Well, we'd like to have at least a dozen. I think everybody should have, well, a minimum of 8.
Oh, easily 8. Sure, nothing unless you have 8 children. Sure.
Well, how many do you have?
Well, I don't have any, Martin.
Oh. Well, I think it's fine to, well, grow up with the children and
That's
spend your time and watch them mature and grow.
Sure, there are a lot of thrills there.
And if it's not out of order, why, can I ask you, why don't you have any
Oh,
children?
no, that's not out of order at all. There's 3 primary reasons. First of all, the apartment house that I'm in won't allow children. Secondly, there is a kind of an expense that I'm not geared to. And third, I'm not married. Does that answer your question?
I'm sorry.
Okay, Marty. Well, anyway, back to the game, which is really the most important thing. You have $512. Now we're getting up into the really big money from $1,000 on up. So I think it's time you step over here and meet the gentleman from Manufacturers Trust Company, Mr. Fight. Would you step over here, please? Fight, this is Mr. Mulligan, who just won $512. Mr. Fight, would you explain your function on the show, please?
Certainly. From this point on, all questions come from the locked vault of Manufacturers Trust Company. Manufacturers Trust Company guarantees that with the exception of the writers, no one has seen these questions. Not Mr. Marsh, not even myself.
Okay. Now, of course, you're going to try for the $1,000 question. You have absolutely nothing to lose. You've just won $512, which is yours regardless. So are you ready for the $1,000 question, Martin?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Fight, may I have it, please? Thank you. All right, Martin, answer very carefully because this is another step towards the big stuff. For $1,000, Babe Ruth, who won his greatest fame as an outfielder for the New York Yankees, didn't start in baseball playing the outfield. Now, for $1,000, what position on the team did Ruth have when he started in Major League Baseball?
Pitcher.
You're right for $1,000. Steady, Marty boy, steady. You have $1,000, Martin. Your next question is worth $2,000. Revlon wants to know. As a matter of fact, Revlon wants you to go on and win, but they have to ask this: will you take the $1,000, or will you leave it and try for $2,000?
I'll try for 2,000.
Oh, you're a nervy father. How about that? All right, Martin, here is the $2,000 question. Answer very carefully. The greatest number of home runs Babe Ruth hit in any year was 60. Now, for $2,000, in what year did Ruth hit those 60 homers?
1927.
You're right for $2,000. Stop, Martin. I'm sorry if I shouted, but this is a little exciting.
I know it is.
If you get up any higher, do you think you might like to go into a business with me? You know,
I'll consider it.
I can work with any of those things you mentioned. Well, Martin, you have $2,000. Your next question is worth $4,000. Now, before you give me your decision, let me tell you this. If you miss the $4,000 question, you still go home with the $512 you won on your first plateau. However, if you answer the $4,000 question correctly, You'll have then reached our second Revlon plateau. You know what that means. Now, what is your decision, Martin Mulligan? What is your decision?
I'll go on.
You'll go on for $4,000. Oh, boy. Thank you, Mr. Fine. You are my kind of guy. You are my kind of guy, Martin. All right, now, here's the $4,000 question. Answer it very, very carefully because more important than actually winning this, it is the second plateau. Now, listen very carefully. George Herman Ruth, that was his full name, still holds the all-time record for home runs, having hit 714 homers in his baseball career. Jimmy Fox is second with 534 homers. Now, for $8,000, give me in the correct order first the name of the player who ranks third, and then the name of the player who ranks fourth as all-time home run hitters. Third and fourth.
Well, Lou Gehrig would be third.
Lou Gehrig is third. You're right there. One more for $4,000.
I'm not sure, but I'll take a chance. Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio is right for $4,000. Martin, what do you say we quit now and go to a Turkish bath and relax a little bit? You want a little shower and a rub down? That wouldn't hurt anything, would it?
No, I think it was a cold
Oh,
shower.
Martin, I can understand how you feel because, frankly, I feel the same way. All right, now back to this business at hand. You have just answered the $4,000 question correctly. Your next question is worth $8,000. Now, from this point on, this is what Revlon wants me to tell you. If you miss any of the ensuing questions, $8,000, $16,000, or $32,000, Revlon has for you as a consolation prize, simply, if you miss, what is it again? Oh, yes, a brand new 1955 Cadillac convertible if you miss. Okay? And I'll throw in a trailer for 4 or 5 of the kids. Naturally, you're going to try for $8,000 because you have nothing to lose. You can only win, you can't lose.
Right.
All right?
I'll try.
All right. Now, Martin, because we are getting into the really big money, and we want to ensure the fact that you get no help from the audience, no clues or sounds, certainly impulsively. The audience wouldn't mean to help you, and I know you wouldn't want any help. We are going to ask you to step into our Revlon isolation booth. Now, this is, of course, to ensure that. It's not going to be terribly lonely because our lovely Lynn Dollar will escort you in it. Okay? Here comes the booth and Lynn. Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you see anything or anyone but me?
Only you.
Oh, that's not fair. Oh, now I can. I was just going to say I couldn't see you. Now we can see only each other.
Yes.
All right, Martin. This is your $8,000 question. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
As ready as you'll ever be. Mr. Fite, thank you. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. This is the last question. Will you excuse me just a second while we get the correct question? I'm sorry, I don't mean this is a nervous strain. Mr. Fite, may I have the correct question, please? Thank you. The greatest... I'm terribly sorry. Something's wrong here. Mr. Fite, forgive us, ladies and gentlemen. This is a complete... All right, I'll ask you the other question. This is kind of an advantage in your favor. I'm going to ask you the same question. I may word it a little bit differently. For $8,000, the greatest number of home runs Babe Ruth hit in any year was 60. Now, for $2,000, the year, as you told me, was 1927. What was the name of the team that Babe Ruth was playing for in 1927 when he hit the 60 home runs? I'll repeat that question. You have 30 seconds in which to answer. In what year, in 1927, Babe Ruth hit 60 homers? What team was he playing for during that year? You have 30 seconds in which to answer. 15 seconds. All right, Martin, I'm sorry for the inconvenience earlier, but your time is up now. What is your answer to the $8,000 question?
New York Yankees.
You were absolutely right for $8,000. Congratulations, Martin. You've just won $8,000. Please forgive me for this added nervous strain. It certainly wasn't intentional. Well, how does it feel to win $8,000? 5 minutes ago, you didn't have that much. Feel pretty good? A little nervous?
Yeah.
Are you strong?
I don't know. Not at this
I
point.
hope you are. Catch me.
Not at this point.
Well, Martin, you've just won $8,000. Your next question is worth $16,000. This is a terribly important decision for you to make. We don't want you to give us your answer right now. Here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to go home, think this over very carefully for 1 week, discuss it with your family, your friends, and then next week, come back and tell us whether you will take the $8,000 or whether you will leave it and try for $16,000. Is that fair enough? Okay, Martin, we'll see you next week. Thanks for being here tonight and playing with us a $64,000 question. Thank you. All right, Bill. On with the show now. Who's our next guest?
Okay, Vicky, our next guest, ready to start the climb to the $64,000 question, is from New York City. This is Mildred Ingraham.
Nice to have you here with us, Mrs. Ingram. Before we go on, Revlon again would like you to have this lovely box of their wonderful beauty products.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Isn't that nice? Well, now, Mildred Ingram, and you're supervisor of student activities at New York University.
I am.
That's an interesting job. What do people call you? Mildred, Millie, or what?
Oh, they call me Millie, Mill, or Mildred, but you can call me Millie.
Oh, well, just to show you that I'm not a stuffed shirt, you can call me Millie, too.
Millie?
No, you can call me Hal. I'm just kidding.
All right, pal.
Hal and Millie. Sounds like old friends, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I'm sorry, no old friends allowed in this program. Who's our next guest, please? No, just kidding, Millie. No, we're not old friends, are we?
No.
We're enemies, right?
Yes.
Well, if you think any enemy of mine is going to win $64,000, you're... No, enough of that. Now what I'd like to ask you is this. Being associated with a New York University, do you ever play hooky from school?
No, I don't play hooky, but I was off during the last semester because I was ill with a mump.
With a mump?
Uh-huh. A mump.
Not the mumps?
No, not mumps. A mump.
One... Are you kidding me? I mean, you just had one mump?
One mump, really.
Where was it?
Well, it was up on the left-hand side here, kind of here.
Well, you know something? I've never told this to anyone before, Millie. But you and I are kindred souls because once when I was 11, I had a measles. You're the only other person who knows that. But enough of that. Would you like to see if you can win $64,000?
I sure would.
Okay, Millie. Now, right behind you is a Revlon list of categories. Now, be very careful, as I said, which one you choose, because whichever it is will take you right on up to $64,000. Which one will it be?
I think I'll take number 3, American history.
Number 3, American history. All right, our IBM selector will send out a batch of questions for you. Lynn, would you press number 3, American history, please? Now, you know the rules of the game, of course, Millie.
Yeah.
And you're ready to go, starting from $1 right on up to $64,000. Right? Ready? Okay. Now, this comes under the category of fact or fiction for your American history category. For fact or fiction, now, I'll give you the name of a woman who was a part of American history. If she is real, say fact. If she's a legend, say fiction. Okay?
All right.
Now, for $1, Martha Washington.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $2, Pocahontas.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $4, Annie Oakley.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $8, Scarlett O'Hara.
Oh, fiction.
You're right. Fiction is raw. Right. Why? Nice to have you here, Millie. For $16, Calamity Jane.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $16. For $32, Ovida Culp Hobby.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $64, Virginia Dare.
Fact.
Fact is right. For $64.